What's good, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Over Quota. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review if you haven't already. And like always, the J. David Group, which is my company, is sponsoring this podcast. My company helps high-growth software companies recruit top software sales leaders and salespeople. Go to thejddavidgroup.com/hiring to learn more, or go to thejddavidgroup.com/looking if you're looking for your next big challenge. Now, my guest today is Stephanie Cox. She's done pretty much everything in her career. She's launched companies, brands, new products, led geographic expansion, and more. She's spoken at conferences around the world and led incredible teams, and she's just getting started. Right now, she's the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Lumavate, which is a platform that empowers marketers to build mobile apps fast with no code required. Stephanie, welcome to Over Quota.
Thanks for having me today.
So let's just start with what I just ended with. Tell me a little bit about your career and what your role at Lumavate is right now.
Yeah, so I went to school thinking I wanted to be a newspaper reporter. Thankfully, I came into my senses because that would have been a horrible career choice given kind of where the media has went lately and how many reporters don't have jobs anymore. So I really got into marketing, had the opportunity early on to work at more, I would say, mid-sized businesses where you're a marketing team of 4 or 2 and got to do a ton of different things. And then really, I think a lot of what gave me tremendous opportunity was started when I was at Ingersoll Rand. I helped launch a DIY home automation solution. And that's where I got into mobile. That's also where I got into geographic expansion into other countries. And then from there, went to ExactTarget, Salesforce, had a ton of really cool opportunities. And, from there, worked at a nonprofit, and now I'm here at Lumavate. I think one thing that's been constant through my career is I started in marketing, but I've always been closely aligned with sales. So I've never been someone that has carried like a quota or a bag, so to say, earlier on. But I've always been the person that the sales team likes to bring in. I remember when I was at Ingersoll Rand, the president of our division said to me, he's like, "You're like the closer." And I was like, "Don't say that. Like, don't say that to people. They're going to want me to go on more sales calls." Because in a lot of ways, if you're selling to marketers and you bring a marketer in, I don't sound like I'm selling to you. I come in as, I've been there, I've done that. I've been in your shoes. Let me tell you why you should make this decision. I'm 100% selling to you. I just comes across differently. So I've always been closely aligned, especially, in the B2B world. If sales and marketing are not well connected and you don't have a great relationship, it's just a lot of finger pointing. And then when I was at Lumavate, I came in to run marketing and got asked by our CEO to take over sales, which I was really excited about because I'd already been involved in most of the sales deals anyways. And it was a great opportunity for me. And then now I also lead our product and customer support teams.
When you think of marketing just broadly, how would you define that given your experience and some of the thoughts that you have on it?
Oh, so such a good question. I think there's like different schools of thought on this, but for me, what really it comes down to is, are you creating enough awareness and demand for your product? And I think the reason why that's important is it's not one or the other, right? I can have a great brand for a product that no one wants to buy. I can also have a ton of demand for something that, without a great brand, which is going to hurt you as you start to scale, and especially as the market gets more competitive and someone can come in and spend more than you and kind of take away some of that awareness. So to me, like, it's really the merriment of the two. And, at the end of the day, it's about driving revenue, right? So for marketers, I hate talking about leads. I really hate it. When someone's like, "Just give me leads." I'm like, "You don't want leads. You don't. I mean, you think you do, but you don't. You don't want to call them. You don't want to call someone or download an ebook." So I don't really care about that. And I think marketers who measure themselves on that are really missing the boat. What I want to be measured on, and what I want all senior marketers to be measured on, is, how I help contribute to revenue. And if you think about that, if you work, if you're just leading marketing and you have a separate sales organization and you're partnering together, I want my sales leader to come to me and say, "Can you do more for me? Can you help me more?" Because they find that what I do for them already is so valuable, and they know that if I can crank up my dial, it's going to help them close more deals. And that to me is really the big part of it. And I think the other thing I'd add to that is, a lot of times marketing is looked at the beginning of the process, right? So getting someone to, a sales meeting. But in reality, companies that don't think about marketing and how it could be best used during the sales process to accelerate that pipeline is a huge miss. There's so much stuff that we can do to really help a sales rep move something along faster, or to create more personalization and a better, image of our company and what it would be like to work with us, which can help you stand out when you're in a competitive deal.
Can you give me an example of that? If I'm in a deal and I'm in the middle of a sales process and, maybe it's a competitive cycle, so to speak, what can
Yes.
marketing do? And how should I, as a sales rep, go to marketing proactively and say, this is what I need. Can you help me?
Yeah. So I think the best teams that do that are marketing teams that have like a list of different ways that we could help, right?
Mm.
So that could be something as, for instance, did your champion or someone else on the buying team get a recent promotion or speak at a conference, right? How can you make sure you call that out in a special way? That could be something as simple as, sending a note and a message, or it could be something as like, let's send a gift, let's send flowers, let's send, something that's tied to it. I think can be really helpful. Also thinking about, if you're having questions around, if you're an earlier stage company, about stability or longevity, having your CEO send a video message that's highly personalized is another great idea. So what I like to do is have a list of different ways that we can be helpful, like for in deal acceleration, and make that kind of like almost like an a la carte to sales reps and say, here's some ways that you could use us. Let us know what makes the most sense. But then also marketing should be really on top of everything in the pipeline and looking for those opportunities too. Because sometimes, right, you might have an AE who's not like on Twitter as much, and their champion is talking on Twitter about all these things. So, making sure that your company is following those people, not just the rep, is important too. So you can, elevate that and say, hey, did you see this? I think this would be a great opportunity. And I think there's creative ways to do that. Like Cameo, I'm a big fan of it. If you haven't checked it out, there's a lot you can do there just to help, brighten someone's day. Like who else is going to send you a video from like David Hasselhoff talking about whatever it is, that connects you to that person.
You said something there. So let's say, for instance, I'm an account executive. I'm unaware that, somebody in one of the stakeholders, so to speak,
Yeah.
is active on Twitter. How do you know in marketing that the account executive, should be aware of this? Like, because here I am in my desk, I'm doing whatever I'm doing. How are you aware of that? Tell me a little bit about that and your thoughts around it.
Yeah. So for us, one of the things that I am a big proponent of is when you do like research on a company, that you also do it on a person. So part of that is figuring out like everything we can know about you. What do you talk about on LinkedIn? What do you talk about on Twitter? Where have you spoken? What have you written about? What are your personal interests? How can we gather all that information? How can we get all that in our CRM? And we happen to use Salesforce. And so for us, we want to know your Twitter handle, right? So we want to follow you. Like, so if we're going to deal with you, like Lumavate wants to follow you on Twitter. And part of that is because now there's a couple of things it does. One, everyone has a little bit of an ego, regardless of whether or not they admit it. And so everyone likes it when their stuff is liked or commented on, regardless of the social platform. So there's a little bit of that. Two, it's how many companies that you're in a deal cycle with follow you? I can't think of one, right? So it stands out a little bit. The other thing I would say to it as well is it really does help you think about it differently, right? Like I don't want my reps spending all day on Twitter, but if we have some listening stuff set up for a certain number of groups and we can just say, hey, did you see this tweet? Or, hey, they mentioned this, we could help them with this, or they're talking about this, which might mean X. That type of stuff is really, really helpful. And that's what a good social media manager should be doing, not just managing social for your company, but also listening to what's going on in the market and how can we use that for deals. And that also includes like listening to competitors and what they're doing and what they're saying. Because if they're saying it on social, they're saying it to your prospect too.
You mentioned that marketing's goals should be tied towards revenue, essentially, right? Like how they're measured. What are some of the shorter term goals or metrics marketing should be looking at? Because I know that when you and I talked before, leads are not, you don't want to measure leads. Like leads are just, actually, let me just pause there. What are your thoughts on leads as it pertains to marketing and marketing leads? And then what are some of the short-term measurables that they should be looking at?
I wish no one would ask a marketer for leads ever again. Like that's like my dream scenario, because let's be honest, right? When you hold marketing accountable to leads are easy to get. Anyone who tells you they're hard to get, they're wrong. Leads are easy because they're really an email address. And you can do display, you can do ads, right? You can create some piece of content, you can gate everything, and you can get a lead. I'd like to meet someone who actually bought your product because they downloaded your ebook. No one does that, right? So all marketing does when you're measured by that is then create a ton of these leads. They come over to the sales team who goes, now you want me to call someone who downloaded an ebook? Like, they're pissed that I'm calling them. And marketing's like, but I generated 10,000 leads. Aren't you, like, I'm doing my job? You're not doing your job. So I'd love for everyone to stop thinking about that. It's a very old school mentality, and instead start thinking about people who are actually ready to buy. And that's just a very different process. It doesn't mean that you're not going to identify those people and pass them over to sales. It's just thinking about it differently. So as an example, you know, when we start talking about like intent data, right? That's a great example of like potentially what companies are in the market. How do you think about, as a marketer, marketing to them and starting to see signals? Are they engaging with your content? Are they opening different things? What pages on your website are they visiting? And then how do you funnel this company and these people to your rep? Because I can tell you, a rep that says, hey, it looks like this person's in market to buy, you know, for us, it's a low code platform. They're going to be a lot more engaged and want to call them than they are someone who downloaded like an ebook. So that's my little rant on leads. But I can tell you, there is an entire generation of leaders out there who are used to leads and who will ask you for leads. And even if you explain to them, we shouldn't do leads anymore, they'll be like, but what am I going to put in the board deck? I need to put like number of leads. No, you don't. What you should be measuring marketing on is how much pipeline we're helping create, right? So, and that's really what it's about, right? And that's for me, that's the first metric. And so if you want to take a step back from that, you know, and say like, you know, the other things I look at, I want to look at website traffic. I want to look at content engagement. I want to look at email open rates and click-throughs, right? Because all that stuff starts to tell me, am I finding the right people in the right companies? And are they engaging with stuff that's going to help me create pipeline?
Is there a benchmark for content engagement that I'm sure each company sets it, but and I guess is there a general sort of number that companies should aspire to when it comes to content engagement? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so I'll talk about email open rates because I think they're a great one. So like the average email open rate for a prospecting email, so something where you're trying to get someone to engage with you, is 5 to 8%. That's horrible. Like absolutely just horrible, right? It means 5 to 8% of people that you email like actually open it. That doesn't mean they actually read it, doesn't mean they do anything with it. So if you just by that, like a numbers game, you'd have to do so much more. But the thing I would say is, you know, for us, ours is about 30 to 40%. Why? Because we spend time finding the right people who are in the right market, and we test our subject lines. So we're constantly trying to figure out what works better. And also knowing that just because something worked, you know, like as an example, something might have worked in Q1 of this year, but now we're in a pandemic and it doesn't work. You have to be constantly iterating. You can't just rest on your laurels. And so that's really important. So now if I can say, okay, 30 to 40% of people I reach out to open my email, okay, how many of them engage with that content? So we do a lot of video. So how many of them are watching video? How many of them are responding to you? How many of them accept your LinkedIn connection request? How do you start to create a funnel that says, okay, I started out with, like, I'm gonna use really simple numbers, 100 accounts. You know, 30 of them opened my email, okay? And then how many of them engaged with the video? Okay, let's say half of those people watched the video. So now I have 15 people that watched the video. If I pass over something like that, okay, so we've shown intent. These companies have intent. They've engaged with our emails. They're watching a video. If I pass that over then to a rep to reach out to, they're going to have a much better chance of getting a meeting and actually talking to someone that has an active deal or is getting ready to be in an active deal cycle than, you know, any other method. So that's kind of how I think about it. And every piece of content and everything that you do is going to have different metrics. And part of it's also going to depend on what industry you're in. I'll give you an example. Marketers, we tend to be very cynical, right? So we are going to judge you so much more harshly on what you send to us than probably anyone else. But if you try and market to an IT audience, right? Like they don't want you to call them. So if you make 100 calls into IT, like they're not going to answer their phone. That's not the right way to get to them, right? So you have to really know your audience and know what channels make the most sense. I think that's another big lesson that a lot of companies don't think about is they go and say, oh, well, we should do email. We should phone calls, emails, direct mail. And my challenge is that what people want? Like, is that what your audience really wants? Where is your audience today? Because if you're marketing to developers, your audience isn't the phone, it's not email, and it's not direct mail. You need to hire a developer advocate and you need to start doing those types of sessions. And you need to be on message boards that don't belong to your company, responding to stuff and being part of a conversation, which is very different than if you're marketing to like a financial service audience. Yes, we're all humans, But as humans in our jobs, we have different preferences. Like you will never find me on TikTok. So if you want to like get my attention, TikTok's not where it's at, right? But if you wanted to get the attention of, I don't know, maybe someone that's in marketing that's in their early 20s, TikTok's probably a great place to find them. So I think it's just knowing your audience and knowing what channels make sense.
You mentioned, going back to the open rates there for email, you mentioned 5 to 8% is the average, 30 to 40% is what you guys are getting. Just to clarify, are those emails that if I'm an account executive, I'm sending out those emails that, maybe those, dare I say it, leads are in are in Salesforce, and I'm emailing these people and that's the open rate? Or are you saying that when you capture an email address and then there's, your automated, marketing tool, whatever it is you use, start sending out drip campaigns, and those are the ones that are getting the either 5 to 8% or 30 to 40%? Which kind of email are you talking about?
Great question. I'm talking about ones that are typically sent out by SDRs.
Okay.
Right. So when you're truly prospecting into someone, right? Mm-hmm. And that could be an SDR or it could be an AE, depending on who owns prospecting in your organization. But someone where you've come up with a list of accounts and you're going after them. And they've not really given you your email address. So it's like a one-to-one communication. You're not batching and blasting, but you're really trying to get them to engage with you.
And the reason why at Lumavate it's 30 to 40%, or presumably teams that you've had over the years, is because of what you were saying earlier. You want to understand where your audience is, what they're talking about, and really give the SDRs or AEs air coverage, so to speak, so that when they initially engage with a prospect, whoever it is, right, if it's a developer or somebody in marketing or whomever, they already have a good feeling, so to speak, right? An awareness, if you will. And then they're more likely to engage than not engage. That's the whole thought process behind that, right?
It is. And it's all about setting, what that perception we want to be is, right? So if you think about it, marketing's job is super important to create a perception of your company and what it's going to be like to work with your company, right? And then sales needs to continue that on, and your customer success team continues that on once they become a customer. But you need to especially where experience matters so much, you need to set up exactly the type of relationship you want and what they can expect from you as early on as the first time they've ever get an email from you or go to your website.
Yep, that makes sense. And tell me a little bit about your, I guess your thoughts on, you don't call it like lead scoring, but account scoring. Does this all sort of fall under that when you say, okay, we've got their Twitter, or like, how does that work exactly?
Yeah, I wish it was like a perfect science. It's really not. It's a little bit of like science, math, and like gut feeling. So it's kind of marrying the two. And I think this is part of the time where experience comes into play. And as you look at other customers that come in, you can start to really tweak it. But really what it comes down to is, I'll give you an example. Some sales reps will create like a target list and say, these are my target list of customers. That's great. And I think that model worked really, really well before we had all the data that we have today. The problem is those, let's say 20 accounts may or may not be in a buying cycle. They may not be in a buying cycle for 2 years because they're in a current contract. So just creating them because you think they fit your ICP isn't necessarily the best way to think about it anymore. What's better is to start looking at things like, and this is where I think intent data can be really helpful if it's used correctly. So looking at intent data as an example and saying like, okay, what are the companies that are surging around those areas that are similar to me, where I fit? So for us, that might be low code. So who's surging around low code? That probably means that they're either in a cycle or getting ready to start a cycle to buy that. So how do we start looking at those companies and starting to then market to them on LinkedIn, right, with ads, or on Twitter with ads, sending emails to them, and starting to figure out, okay, are they really in the cycle? Or was it an intern that works at a company that was just Googling stuff for their college paper? Because that's the other thing with intent data. You don't know who it is, right? So it could be someone, and it could be representative of it being an actual real opportunity there for your company, or it could just be someone that's Googling something on their work computer. So I always like to say, like, that intent data does not tell you that that's 100% accurate and that the people you would go after are the ones actually looking for it. But what it does do is help you better figure out what fish could be in your ocean. And then you start using all these other channels from a marketing perspective to see, okay, how many points do they start to allocate? Like, how big is this fish? Is it a little minnow that's just out there exploring, or is it actually like a pretty big fish because, they're going to your website now, they're engaging with your ads, they're opening your emails. That starts to increase the value of that account and its importance to kind of really your sales team. And to me, like, that's the best thing. So when you start passing over people who are highly engaged across multiple channels, that's what we want.
When you say surge, what does that mean? When you say, I forget what you said, an account is surging or something. What does that mean?
Yeah, so every intent data system does it a little bit differently, but a lot of times what you can see is they'll give you an intent score for the company based on how much is happening and how much they're really indexing on whatever that, either it's keyword phrase or something like that, or category, depending on who you're using. And you can see what surging means. They've been doing a lot of it very recently. So as an example, their score might be 50. I'll use that. Right? Because over the last 4 months, they've been off and on different things searching for low code in our example. But in the last week, they've been surging. There's been a lot of activity on it. That means there's actually probably more propensity for something going on there than, it would be over a period of 3 months where they're just looking at it. So to me, like, if you find the ones that are surging, like, those are probably your hottest opportunities to start thinking about for target accounts than ones that are just kind of looking at it over a period of time.
I want to go back to something.
Limited resources.
Okay, I want to go back to something you said earlier, because as I'm thinking about this, and if someone's listening, they might want to know more. So let me just back up for a minute. You mentioned video. Tell me, if I'm in marketing now at a particular company, or maybe I'm a salesperson listening to this and I want to go to marketing and say, hey, you got to listen to this. How are you guys using video more specifically? I know you're using video, and you mentioned Cameo. You can give me an example of a Cameo used and how that worked, but just generally, how is that fitting into your marketing plan execution?
So I love video for a couple of reasons. One, it is super cheap to do. So you can do a lot of it fast. And if you do it right, it's highly authentic. So you as a rep, you should not go to your marketing department and say, hi, can you make these highly produced videos? Because guess what? No one wants to watch them, right? Like, I don't want to watch a video, like a highly produced video. What I want to watch is you talking to me as a person and telling me why you want to talk to me. And that's the big difference, right? Or doing something creative that someone hasn't stood out before. So for us, really, when we thought about video, and we started on this journey, like early 2018, where I came up with this idea and I said, hey, what if we sent videos, personalized videos, to everyone that we're prospecting into? And my team stared at me and were like, that sounds crazy. Like, absolutely crazy. And I was like, I know, we should do it. And really what I did there was I said, okay, I told our head of sales at the time, I said, pick 20 accounts, whoever you want, just pick 20 accounts. And we'll write scripts and you'll film the videos for us. We'll do all the research. Literally, I'll just need a couple hours for you to sit with a MacBook while we record these videos. And of course, that was my fault because I didn't put any parameters around it. And of course, he gave me Walmart and Starbucks, Bosch tools. And I was like, for the love. But here's the thing. We spent a week doing it because we were super slow at it to begin with. Wrote scripts, took 4 hours to record them all. Got them done on a Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Uploaded them to YouTube on unlisted, right? Super hacky. We had no software doing any of this. And it was Friday, 3 o'clock. And I was like, just send the emails. I just want this project to be done, which I normally would never say send an email at 3 o'clock on a Friday. And guess what? By Monday, we had meetings booked because no one else was doing that. We were highly personalized, highly targeted. And that moment, our team goes, oh, wait, this is going to work. Yeah, it's going to work because no one else is really doing it, or if they are doing it, it's super generic, right? They're not being, really well informed and personalized to the person. Going hey, Stephanie, I saw you went to Franklin College. Well, that took you 2 seconds, duh. But someone saying hey, Stephanie, I saw that you have a lot of hot takes on leads. I'd love to learn more about that. I'm going to respond to you because you've actually done your homework on me. This is not some bash and blast thing that you've done. So I think that really got our team going, and, we got a lot better and faster at it. And now, right, I tell people you have to record about 100 videos of these personalized prospecting ones until you no longer think about it and you get in the rhythm where you don't need a script and you can just talk to someone, because that's what you want. I want a 1 minute of you just talking to a prospect and telling them why you want to talk to them and why you think that we could help them. And it's all about them. It's not about us. Don't talk about us and what we can do for you. Talk about how we can help you, and how we know you have a problem that we could solve. right? That's what people want. And so to me, like that's a big one. We've also done some creative things around direct mail. So if you don't know, people like to film videos of them opening boxes on YouTube. So why not like take that concept and do it with your own direct mail? So the day we ship out direct mail, we actually film a video that we usually use the green screen for and do it like really funny. So like we did a money tree plant and we actually had the SDR pretend like they were in a jungle. So we did like a jungle green screen behind him and literally had him unbox what's in the box we're sending them. Super simple. It takes like, you know, a couple minutes to film. It was like a 30 to 45-second video. And then we sent it to everyone to let them know a direct mail package was on their way. And I had people email him back or call him because it's been 3 days and they hadn't got their box. I am not sending them something super expensive. It's a money tree plant. It costs like $3. But we create this anticipation, right? Would you watch a video that was like a message from the jungle? Yes, because you would be like, what the hell is this? So to me, like that's where you can use video. And Cameo, I think is fun too. You know, if you're having a really hard time, like someone goes dark on you in a deal cycle, which we've all been there, right? Like they're so hot and they're like, you know, they're going to sign and all of a sudden they don't respond to your emails or your calls and you're wondering what's going on. But you can see that they're opening stuff. Try something like that. Find out who their favorite sports team is or player or actress or some show that they love and get a quick Cameo video that just says, hey, I know you've been talking to Stephanie and it sounds like you're probably really busy right now, but like she'd appreciate it if you give her a call back. That stuff, like people will respond to that because overall we're all decent people. And if someone puts that much effort into it, you're going to feel bad. Like you would feel bad to say like, I'm not going to respond to that. Like you probably at least respond and be like, yeah, so sorry, I've like taken forever, right? But using video as a way to start a conversation or restart a conversation is really, really helpful. But it doesn't have to be these high polished videos. Like just grab your phone or your, you know, MacBook, record it and send it.
Is that where we're at right now, by the way? We can just say we're all decent people. We can't say good anymore. We're just all kind of decent at this point. That's where we're at.
That's my hope, right?
I know. We're just decent. We can't say, yeah, there's no guarantee we're all good people anymore. We're just decent.
I hope that we're decent, right?
It's funny. Couple of questions about all that. So you mentioned 20 accounts for the videos. How many different stakeholders were you targeting within those 20 accounts? Because I know you said you have to have multiple touch points. How many roughly would you say there were?
When we first started, we did like 1 or 2 people per account. Okay. And then, you know, as it grew, we might target like 100 accounts in a given month. And we go in the enterprise space and upper mid-market. So we're typically looking at 4 to 5 people. Like it's not uncommon for like an SDR to send out hundreds of videos a month. Wow. And that sounds crazy, but it's not if you think that they're a minute and you just record them, right? Because if you stutter or you mess up, that's authentic. Like I know that you really wanted to talk to me. It would be like I was talking to you in person. And I know there's Zoom fatigue and everything right now with COVID. I still find people that send me videos that are then like sitting in their house saying like, here's what I want to talk to you. I still respond.
That's great.
And
that's why I don't edit these videos, by the way, too, because it's just 2 people having a conversation and you know, I'm not going to, it is what it is. Everything is what it is. One other thing too, that I wanted to say is regarding the script that you initially wrote. How do you script it and make it personalized? What's the nuance there? What's the trick?
Yeah. So the reason we scripted it first, and we did that probably for like the first 6 months, was really because we wanted to eliminate all excuses of why it was too hard. Okay. So that's really what it was about. I didn't want to hear like, oh, it's too hard. I don't know what to say. So we would do all the research and then the script was like 100% personalized. And we started the first ones out with like, hey Jay, here's what I know about you. And then we literally like walk through like these unique things we knew about you that would clearly take a ton of time to find out. And here's why I want to talk to you and here's why I can help you, right? So it's very, very personalized. I think what we started to do, and this is because everyone goes, well, that's not scalable. Well, no, it's not for a marketing team to write scripts for videos. The goal is, how do you get your reps to do enough of them where now they can just look at someone on social media, dive into a company, dive into their accounts, and then turn their camera on and just ad-lib it. Like that's the goal. And after you've done enough scripts and you start to see how to structure them and how to think about it, it becomes really easy.
I hate to get into the weeds, but I just have to, just because I'm just so fascinated by it. And I love this stuff, obviously. When you're So just allow me this, guys. When you're doing the script, do you have like a teleprompting software? I told you it was no. That's in the like the laptop that they're looking on. How is it being executed?
I wish we were that fancy. No, it's like literally. And okay, this is like a great trick. And one of the people that used to work for me, Julia, I'm stealing it from her because she is the one that taught all of our reps this. It's like in a Google Doc. And then what you do is you take your magic mouse
Yeah.
and you basically skinny down your Google Doc so it's like directly below your camera. And then you just hold it underneath and slowly scroll. And that way it doesn't look like you're reading.
Right.
If you're doing a script. But yeah, most of the time now our reps just ad lib.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I would be the one that would have to ad lib almost from the beginning because I'm just a horrible like reader. Like I can't read aloud without making a mistake. Like I'd be there forever, right? And it's one thing to sound authentic. It's another thing to sound like you're reading and making mistakes while you're reading. it just wouldn't come across for me, you know?
Well, and I think everyone's that way too, because even people who, I think do really well in public speaking, you get them into like recording a video and they're like they're like, oh, I messed up, or oh, I said this word wrong. I'm like, it doesn't matter. You're a person. Like you say, it's okay.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Of course. One of the things you mentioned when we talked before is that, marketing and sales should not be pointing the finger at each other, right? They should be fully aligned. How strategically do you, and you're VP of sales and marketing there, but how do you strategically get them aligned from, the top on down? So it's almost part of the culture, I guess, if you will, to make that happen. And so, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, it's real easy when you own both of them. So that would be my first thing. Try to start there.
Okay.
Real easy. I think it's really about leaving your ego at the door, honestly. So I think the thing that's important is, as a marketing leader, you need to make sure that you're not beholden to sales, right? Like your job is to help them, but at the same token, right, their job is to take advantage of the work that you do. So there's not one group that works for the other or one that's more important than the other. I think that's really important. And so to me, it's all about how do you set really good like foundations with your sales leader, if you're a marketer, or if you're a sales leader with your marketing leader, on expectations. So what do we think the role is? And I've done this before when, in other organizations where we've been hiring a sales leader and I've been part of the interview process, I'll ask them like, well, what's your view on marketing? And you can tell like right away based on their facial reaction, like whether or not they're going to be good to work with or not. Because either they get marketing and they understand the value like good marketing can bring, or they see marketing as like, you create PowerPoint decks for me, right? And so to me, I think it's finding the right people that both believe that marketing and sales can work together. I always try and start every relationship I've had with the sales leader as like, I want to be like, first I want us to be friends. Like, and if we can be friends, we're less than likely to point fingers at each other in public settings. Now, the two of us might go away later and like hash it out, but in front of everyone, like we are on the same page. So I think that's really key. So I was trying to develop like a good personal, like I want to get to know you as a person. I want to know like your family, all that stuff. Cause then I feel like you get to a deeper layer with that person. And if there's a problem, they're going to come talk to you about it first versus like throwing you under the bus, which is what I've seen so many times before. And it's really around expectations. Like, what do you expect from marketing? What do you expect from sales? And are we on the same page? And if we're not on the same page, how do we get to agreed upon expectations? And I know some people do like SLAs between the two groups. And I would just say, if you have to do SLAs between the groups, like you're not on the same page, right? You're doing that because you have to hold the other person accountable because they don't want to do what you want them to do. And I think that's the big difference, right? So to me, I'm not a marketer that says like, sales, tell me what you want, right? Like you need it in blue. Okay, we'll do it in blue. I'm going to advocate for what's best for the company, but I'm also going to try and help you as much as possible. But I need the same thing, right? I need you to tell me what's working and what's not working, right? If I'm bringing you accounts that are not closing, don't just throw me under the bus for that. Tell me where are they stuck? What's wrong? What's not working there? I want to know, is it rep specific? Because I'm going to look at that data. Maybe, you know, they're not closing for a specific rep, and that's more of a rep problem than it is an account problem. Or maybe you're seeing something that I haven't seen in my data. Like, come tell me. I want to help. Like, let's figure this problem out together. I know some people say, you know, sales and marketing are like the mom and dad of revenue. And I think it's really true, right? Like, you can't, mom can't tell the kids to go do one thing and dad tell them something else. Nothing else, it doesn't go well, right? So I think if we have like a united front and really all are on the same page and agree about what sales and marketing do together, that is where you win. And I think if you're not, it's just a bunch of finger pointing.
Is your suggestion to CEOs or people that are responsible for essentially forming companies and building teams to do what you just alluded to, which is to make it so that they hire a sales leader like Stephanie Cox, who is both sales and marketing? Should it ever be separate, in your opinion, if in a perfect world?
I think in a perfect world, it's a hard one. I've seen it work really successfully as separate teams, and I've seen it also work better under one leader. I think it really comes down to the overall like CEO too, honestly. I think if your CEO is really strong, has a strong sales background, I think it makes a lot of sense maybe to have one person lead sales and marketing, right? Because you're going to have another perspective from at least from a sales side. And your CEO, or vice versa, if they're more coming up more through the marketing ranks. I think in other organizations, maybe if your CEO is more of a product leader, and that's kind of what their background is, or more of like a CTO technical leader before they became a CEO, I think having a separate marketing and sales person work together can be really effective. Because for that person, like, you need different viewpoints, right? You need they don't have as much sales experience or as much marketing experience, and having people who are really strong in both, I think, can be really advantageous. So I think it depends on like the background of the CEO. I will tell you, I do believe long-term, as you think about organizations, and this could be a CEO or it could be a COO, but really having one person on the leadership level that has a clear vision for the customer experience from the first time they hear about your brand and marketing all the way through, you know, their 10-year renewal is the most important thing. Because I'll give you an example. Like, I can be aligned with a sales leader on expectations of what marketing does and what sales does. But if I give them this highly personalized experience and sales doesn't give them that same experience during the sales process, companies notice, right? It feels a little bait and switchy. You really want to talk to me, but now you kind of ignore me, or now everything you do feels like very, you know, cookie cutter. So I think that, to me, is like the bigger question we need to be asking is, who's ultimately responsible for the customer experience? And sometimes that vision can come from a CEO, and sometimes that vision could come from a CRO or a COO. But someone needs to be ultimately in charge of making sure that we have a cohesive customer experience from across every touch point for the life cycle of a customer.
Which the bucket does your CEO at Lumavate fall under? Sales or marketing?
Oh, great question. He's kind of unique. I would say, falls more on sales, but also he, back in the day, used to be a programmer. So he also has, right, some development chops. So I think that he's a little bit more unique in that perspective. Typically, you know, most CEOs you see have like just one area, but he's, you know, used to more, I would say, more sales.
Very cool. Okay. Now I have come to the part of the interview which I call, I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you before, but it's called the Rapid Fire 5, where I just ask you.
Let's go.
There we go. 5 questions. You answer them the way you think. What are you most excited about right now, personally or professionally?
Oh, gosh. Okay. I am most excited right now about transitioning Lumavate to product-led growth. So in October, we will move to product-led. I'm super excited about it. And we'll be empowering any marketer to build an app on our platform for free for life.
Very cool. Product-led growth. I actually interviewed Samuel Clemens, who was the founder of, what's the name now? I'm drawing a blank. Insight Squared. He founded Insight Squared, and now he just founded another company called Reprise. And he talked, I think it was him. It was either, sorry guys. It was either him or the interview I did with Mackie Craven. They talked about product-led growth. I think it was actually Mackie Craven, now that I think about it, from Open View Ventures, who talks a lot about product-led growth. So cool. What activity do you miss most since being sheltered in place and, you know, not being fully back to normal?
Vacation. I
Where?
miss vacation. Oh God.
Anywhere?
Well, yeah, like anywhere right now, but I think we had such big plans for 2021 as a family. So every year for Christmas, the last box the kids open is our bucket list box. So we always put in clues about where our bucket list trip is the next year. And we were supposed to go to Europe. We're supposed to leave in like less than 2 weeks to do England, Scotland, and France for my husband's 40th birthday with our kids. And let's just say we're all really bummed that we can't go overseas. So
A bucket list box. I'm going to steal
yeah.
that. I think that's fantastic.
So
I love that. Yeah, I understand that. What keeps you motivated?
I have like just this insatiable drive. So I think part of it is just like who I am as a person. I like hard challenges. I like really complex problems. So just kind of solving them and then seeing like what's next, which is if you've ever watched The West Wing, when Martin Sheen goes, "What's next?" Like that's kind of how I am. I'm like, okay, what's next? Let's go. It's just who I am personality wise. I've been that way since a child. So I'm kind of like, I motivate myself.
I love it. It's fantastic. Can you share a piece of advice with me that helps you stay productive, or a tool that you use to help you stay productive?
Oh, that's really good. Okay, so I am kind of old school. I still like to write things down. So I know some people love, they're like, oh, I use, Evernote, or oh, I use, all these different tools. And I literally I have a to-do list. It's all written down. I scratch things off. And part of the reason is for me, I have a lot of responsibilities, both personally and professionally. And so just getting it all out of my head on paper where I can see a list and know how many things I need to do just really helps me not think about it again. So, and I find when I try and do digital lists, it just doesn't do that. So that to me is if I write something down, I also have a photographic memory. So when I write it down, I remember it too. So I always take old school notes. I don't type notes up when we meet with customers or prospects or my team. So
interesting. Yeah, I wonder if this has something to do with some sort of mind-body connection, physically writing it down helps you sort of, I don't know.
Let it go.
Yeah, right. Yeah, put it and get out there. And the last question, very simple. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you, to say thank you, perhaps get more advice? Who knows?
Yeah, so you can hit me up on Twitter, Stephanie Cox 04, or on LinkedIn. Happy to chat or help anyone share what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, so you don't make the same mistakes. Anytime.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie Cox, for helping us all go over quota.
My pleasure.
Goodbye, everybody. Cue in the music.